49ers versus Packers recap. Mike, this was an ugly one, I think, from start to finish. I think there were points in the game where it got better. The 49ers sort of like kept hanging around like in the fourth quarter. They were down by like 2 scores and then or like sort of around halftime, second half-ish. But I'm going to focus a little bit less on the game and maybe talk more about individual players. So I guess I'll start with the quarterback. So Brock Purdy did not play in this game, and you and I had zero knowledge that he was not going to play in the game. I think
last week's episode.
In last week's episode, I think maybe I might have mentioned, Brock Purdy's banged up shoulder, but for the most part, the expectation was that, Purdy was going to play. And so that's why Mike, picked the 49ers to win the game. But Mike texted me as soon as he heard that Brandon Allen was going to start and that Nick Bosa was going to be out, that he was going to, pick the Packers. So we both, predicted correctly. So it's not like the 49ers were, I'd say, expected by both of us to win this game, and maybe by like a lot of fans once like a lot of our most key players. Like I'd say Purdy might be the most important player on offense. Not the best player on offense, but maybe the most. He is the shoelace that holds the entire shoe together. You know what I mean? So once he was out, and Bosa is one of the best defensive players. I mean,
he's having a hell of a season.
He's been here and there, I'd say. Bosa.
Right. I think he was, I don't know if he was leading the league, but I think he's like really high up on the list on pressures on the season.
Yeah. So with Purdy out, as Fonzie says here, Dobbs, I think, should have started. I think Dobbs is the more talented backup quarterback, but for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan trusts Brandon Allen a little bit more with the offense. And I have to say, I mean, the first quarter, Brandon Allen started off very slow, and the 49ers, I think, like up to a certain point, had only gained like 8 yards. It was like the first quarter was ending, and it was like only 8 yards to the Packers, like 128 or 138. Like it was just bad. So obviously, if Purdy's in there, like he can't play defense, and like it wouldn't change what the Packers were able to accomplish on offense. But yeah, so Brandon Allen wasn't as bad as I think that like a lot of people were expecting him to be. Like I was expecting a lot less from Brandon Allen, and there were a lot of drops from, receivers, but ultimately I think that Dobbs maybe would have given the 49ers a better chance to win this game, but Allen wasn't horrible besides the turnovers. And in terms of like the interception, there was at least one interception. Let me look at his like actual stats. Brandon Allen, 17 of 29, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The interception went off of Deebo's hands, and then I think there were a pair of fumbles. And one of the crazy parts about Brandon Allen in this game was just the fact that on his non-throwing hand, he had a broken finger, and it's like, I don't think it was as big of a factor as maybe it would have seemed, but I think he probably still would have fumbled even had his finger not been broken. It just the way that those plays played out. But ultimately, that falls on Kyle Shanahan. That was his decision to play Brandon Allen, and he wasn't horrible. He wasn't horrible. So I think we can move on to, let's go to wide receivers. I think George Kittle had a very good game today. He had 6 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Kittle, I notice, excels with backup quarterbacks. I think Rob Stats Guerrera, mentioned how well Kittle does. And I don't know, I guess there is just something to like quarterbacks who don't have as much experience as like NFL vets tend to favor tight ends. So Kittle's able to, to feast off of that. Juwan Jennings, I think, played a good game today. 5 catches, 40 yards. I feel like he could be a little bit more involved in the offense, especially more involved than Deebo Samuel. Deebo had one catch for 21 yards, and that catch was like the most manufactured play ever. It was a lot like the play in the Super Bowl that they drew up for Juwan Jennings, where it was like a reverse and then a pitch, sort of flea flicker type of thing into a screen. But Deebo Samuel was on the receiving end of the screen, picked up 21 yards. And other than that, Deebo had two balls that hit him right in the hands, and they just bounced off his hands. And maybe something can be said about, I guess the velocity coming in is different than what he expects, because Purdy normally, I guess, has a little bit less velocity on the ball than maybe Brandon Allen does. But I don't know. Those balls have to be caught. And Deebo had a horrible game. Didn't want to talk to the media after. And Deebo's a team captain. So I don't know. When you lose, I feel like you have to still represent the team. But I don't know. It just comes off as like sort of a sore loser kind of vibe. And especially coming off of a couple weeks ago, he went over to the kicker, exchanged words, supposedly told him to lock in, and then, got physical with the long snapper. It's a horrible look for Deebo. Like, he did not look locked in, except for obviously that manufactured play on the screen. And then there was the kick return for I want to say it might have been like an 87-yard return that got called back because they called holding on Eric Sobert. And I think Sobert got kind of, the Niners got kind of screwed over on that one. I don't think that it was holding. I think that he was like within the frame of the player and he pancaked them and they called it. I think it was a horrendous call and changed a lot of the game, because that was coming right into the second half and the 49ers were down 17-7, I think, at that point. And the 49ers could have been right in the red zone, but obviously got called back. Horrible call. 49ers don't end up even scoring on that drive. I don't even think. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey got a little bit involved in the passing game, 3 catches, 37 yards. And it's not the same McCaffrey that we had last year, at least in terms of the rushing production. I really don't know what's going on. He just doesn't seem like he's ready, in game shape. But McCaffrey had 11 carries, 31 yards, which comes out to 2.8 yards per carry, which is not going to get it done. Jordan Mason, all right, there was a point in the game, I think I sent Mike a tweet, where Jesse Miller from Second Sports, shout out to Jesse, pointed out that Jordan Mason had just as many yards as Christian McCaffrey did on 4 less carries. So I think McCaffrey at that point had like 5 carries for 16 yards, and Jordan Mason had 1 carry for 16. And Jordan Mason was not involved in this game. I think right now Jordan Mason looks like the better running back on the team. He had the entire offseason. He wasn't battling, these injuries. Jordan Mason didn't have to rehab, didn't have to go all the way to Germany to fix his Achilles, and Mason has looked good. But in this game, he finished with 3 carries for 8 yards, because towards the end of the game, they put him in garbage time, lost, obviously ended the day losing more yardage in garbage time than he had up to that point. So that brought down his average. And then Brandon Allen, 2 carries for 5 yards, not as mobile as Purdy. And that's why you would want a guy like Joshua Dobbs in there. But, like I already sort of talked about Allen, but I would say for sure, I expect better out of Deebo Samuel, considering he's one of the highest paid players on the team. He's got to be gone next year. He has got to be gone. I don't see where they can bring him back. I just don't see it. Him throwing his teammates under the bus and, in public, taunting them, just his demeanor. It's not, I don't think it's helping the team. And send him to New England, send him to a team that needs a wide receiver that might overpay, that might be desperate. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, based off his contract, and I mean, we were talking about it this past offseason, even during the season for the trade deadline. I think the writing is on the wall. The only thing that might make it slightly difficult is the fact that Ayuk is coming off such a devastating injury, but it's just gotten to the point now where I think, if anything, Debo is just being toxic to this franchise, to this team. And, you just drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round, and I think you have a promising young player in Jacob Cowing, and you still have Juwan Jennings under contract. So why do you need Debo? Even if you have to eat some of that contract, if you can get a pick for him before this upcoming draft, yeah, by all means.
The only really standout stats in terms of defense that, really jump out is that Leonard Floyd had 2 sacks. Obviously, there was no Bosa to really get much of a rush on Jordan Love for most of the game. And I don't know. I don't think the defense was the biggest problem in this game. Like, definitely to start off the game, it was bad. Josh Jacobs had a field day today. He had 3 touchdowns. And I don't know, the Packers offense kind of stalled throughout the middle portion of the game. Like they started off hot. It was like 17-0. 17-0 at one point. And like they really game planned and had like guys like Jaden Reed involved, and then they just completely abandoned Jaden Reed, and then the offense stalled. And then afterwards they were able to, like, it could have been worse. Christian Watson dropped a wide open pass that could have been a touchdown. It was way down the field. There were a couple other drops by Green Bay receivers, but I mean, the final score ended up being 38-10. And really, this is a game that I think most 49er fans will just want to forget. And yeah, like what do you expect with a lot of your best players not playing? They were already up and down. They were 5-5 already with Purdy and Bosa. You take that away, you put them on the road against a team like the Packers, who are pretty damn good. It's not a recipe for success. But I'm going to take the comments right now, and then we can move on to previewing next week, because, I mean, spoiler alert, I don't think that it gets very much better next week. Let's see. Yeah, not off of Debo's hands, says Fonzie. It went through his hands. It hit his hands and just went right through. Like, I think it's like the scene from The Longest Yard where Brucey's like, "Damn, I knew I shouldn't have eaten that popcorn." But obviously Brucey was throwing. Joel tuning back in, another one of our more faithful viewers. We appreciate the support, Joel. Welcome back in. We will talk about the Raiders after we get through the 49ers stuff.
Nice profile photo.
Oh yeah. Damn.
I like that.
You know what?
Raiders logo on the t-shirt.
Yeah. Kendrick's new album dropped, and this isn't a hot take, but I think Damn is much better than the new one. The new one's passable. I don't have many issues with the new album. I just think the Damn is better.
Damn is very hard to beat. So.
It's so good to listen to. Damn is really, really damn good. Fonzie says Mason is the best option at this point in time. I agree. I think that maybe you got to get to a certain point where you just got to think about shutting down McCaffrey, because you have already sort of extended his contract. You got to think long term with McCaffrey. I think this team, I don't see them going really anywhere. I don't think they win this football game, even if they're at full strength with Purdy, Bosa, and I think Trent Williams also didn't play today. I gotta double check that. But one other thing that jumped out in the game, there was a moment where Shanahan got very upset with the officials, and I think Shanahan was fully in the right, where the Packers went hurry up at the line, and they had substituted, and they didn't give the 49ers time to substitute on defense. So they got the 49ers for a penalty for having 12 men on the field, but it was also an illegal formation on the offense. So those offset. The next play, it was still 12 men on the field. So that's definitely bad, but I can see where Shanahan was frustrated with the first one. The second one, it's like, all right, you gotta get the right amount of people on the field. All right. Who else is glad that T.O. called out Debo? Honestly, I'm glad. And then, I mean, clearly Debo, heard it, right? Clearly Debo, or the message got relayed to Debo because he tweeted about it, and he's like, hey, T.O., essentially told him to chill out. And I don't know. I think good for Terrell Owens to call out Debo Samuel because he is not playing up to his standard. Debo has a higher standard, I think, as a player, and I would hope that he can still recapture that standard, but this season has been just horrible for him. Remember this offseason, Mike, when I said I would be ecstatic if their plan was to keep Ayuk and trade away Debo?
Yep.
Ayuk didn't have a good season either this year, but I feel like the book has been out on Debo.
Yeah.
No, the defense was not the problem. Yeah. The defense was not the entire problem. Like, the defense wasn't great. It's clearly a downgrade from what they've had in the past, but yeah. And then Frank kind of feels the same as well. I find little fault with the defense today. I agree. They gave the offense so many opportunities. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Joel says, thoughts on Shanahan right now? Well, I mean, he's just very stubborn. And, one thing, like, Shanahan always gets compared to Harbaugh because of how successful they've, their successful tenures in between that, like, awful period between Chip Kelly and Jim Tom Sula. And so I'll put it to you this way. I think that, like, it's kind of hard to root for Shanahan when he's not winning because there's just nothing redeeming about his personality. Like, he does not seem like a very relatable guy. He just seems very stubborn, thinks things should be a certain way, and does not want to change. And there's nothing fun about, like, his press conferences or anything. He gets very defensive with the media. Like, yeah, I get it. You want, like, a serious head coach and everything, but, like, if they're not winning, it's miserable. And right now they're not winning. So I don't know. What do you think about Shanahan right now, Mike?
I think it's because they're not winning, but he just feels a little, I shouldn't say he feels different. Like, his personality hasn't exactly changed. It's just, I think, like I said, because they're not winning, it feels like instead of him being like this kind of, hard-headed, not very personable coach, now that they're losing, he looks more like he's acting the exact same as he always has. But now that they're not winning, they don't have a winning record. He kind of comes off like stale, or like, just tired of it, very over it.
He looks a little burnt out. I don't know if he is, but he looks a little bit burnt out. And, like, that was kind of my prediction of whether or not this was going to be a Super Bowl hangover year. And so, all right, here's the thing. Just because the 49ers are bad this season doesn't mean that it's necessarily over if they do ride with Shanahan. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles were the team that, I mean, they started off good and then they just plummeted. And then it's like, man, are they going to get rid of Nick Sirianni? Like, they freaking fell apart. Like, I've never seen a team fall apart before. And, like, it almost looked like, man, this guy isn't, like, a serious head coach. They are one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC this season. They might go back to the Super Bowl. You never know. They have a good roster. We'll see. For me, it's between them and Detroit right now. Yeah. So, all right. What I like about Shanahan, I think I like his history with the 49ers because his dad coached and then Shanahan was a ball boy. I like that. I like the way that he's able to bring in talent ever since he's been here, he's brought in talented players. He got this franchise going in the right direction after, Tom Sula and Chip Kelly. I mean, hard to really have it go in the wrong direction once you go from that. But I mean, he has done a good job, but he has not been perfect. And he didn't even need to be perfect, but in certain areas, managing the clock late in the game. One thing I hate about having Shanahan as a coach is I feel like he doesn't divert his focus away from his play sheet. A player goes down, and he's just reading his play call. Like, what are you, what are you reading? Is there like a book hidden behind that play sheet? Like, how can you be fixated on it for so long? There is an entire football game going on out there. You are the head coach. Like, all right, I get it. What is Shanahan crying about a guy getting injured going to do? And that's what he would tell you. Like, oh, I'm not going to like pretend to do this. Like, that's not me. Like, it just doesn't give me a whole lot of empathy as a fan of like, hey, this is a guy who genuinely cares about his players. Like, it's just, to me, he's just playing Madden and always looking at the play sheet. Like, that's kind of how it feels like he coaches the team. So, I don't know. That's one of the things I don't like. And he just doesn't get the fans very motivated. Like I said, if he's not winning, there's not really much redeeming of him. But that's just my opinion of him. You can love him. I'm not going to tell any 49er fan they shouldn't love him just because I'm not in love with his sort of the way that he runs things. I just disagree with a lot of the ways that he runs the team. Fonzie says, this whole season has sucked. Yep. Let's see. What has our status been in 7 years? Well, in 7 years, they have been the team that has built one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. But right now, as it currently stands, their status right now is the team that has missed their Super Bowl window and is going to probably have to rebuild. That's their current status right now. It's not 100% set on that, but yeah. All right. Let's see. We're all allowed a down year. Yeah. I'm not saying fire Shanahan, and I do see Fonzie's question that I will get to in a second. I feel like us fans take it, like too personally. I would say it does get pretty like personal. I think if you can't upgrade over Shanahan, you don't fire him right now. So I don't know. Will the offseason be another episode of the DC scapegoat? I just wonder, like, how long until they scapegoat somebody else? Like, what about John Lynch? I don't think John Lynch has done a horrible job. They just had one of their best drafts in the past couple of years, but I mean, how the NFL works as a business. Sometimes heads roll. So Fonzie says, burnt out 7 years at the top. Like they said, them playing NFC championship games and Super Bowls equate to a whole season, literally a season. Yeah, but that's kind of the point. It's like they've played a lot of football and haven't climbed the mountaintop. That's why I would say they're a little bit burnt out. It's got to be exhausting going through all that extra football and not having it result in their final goal. It's always a disappointment every single time they get deep in the playoffs. There hasn't been that ultimate the payoff. So that's why I'd say Shanahan himself looks a little burnt out. The team they just don't look as motivated as before. They don't have that same aura. Teams aren't scared when they play them. That's just my take on it. But Fonzie asks, Josh, who would you take over Shanahan? That is a good question. Are you saying like candidates who are available right now? Or are you saying any coach in the NFL? Because I think there are a handful of coaches that I wouldn't skip a beat to take over Shanahan right now. Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. I would take Mike Tomlin over Kyle Shanahan. He's won a Super Bowl before and has never had a losing season. John Harbaugh, I would take.
Mm.
Dan Campbell, I would take over Kyle Shanahan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would
I
love
would
to
even,
have him as a head coach.
yeah. I think I would take Sean McVay. He's won a Super Bowl.
He has, man, yeah.
I say they're similar.
Yeah, possibly LaFleur, because LaFleur actually pays attention to the games. But all right, Fonzie, in terms of candidates right now who could be available this offseason, who I would take over Kyle Shanahan, I mean, Ben Johnson would be my guy that I would be intrigued with. Ultimately, he could not pan out as a head coach. Maybe he's just meant to be an offensive coordinator, but he is a guy that I would feel comfortable turning the reins to. But other than that, nobody immediately jumps to mind. It's not my job, though, to hire the next guy.
Would you take Bill Belichick?
No. I would let Kyle keep going. Yeah. I think Belichick's a little too old. I get it, the Super Bowl pedigree and everything like that, but dude, he's cheated before, and I don't know. He had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
All right. Frank says video game mentality. Just asking for an opinion. Yeah, I mean, I hope you can at least like respect my answer, you know. But like I said, you don't have to agree with it. Like you're definitely entitled to have your opinion. What coaches would you take over Kyle Shanahan? Would be my question. It would be hard to upgrade Shanahan with the candidates currently available. I kind of agree. It's like maybe Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
So
the only other person I could think of, and I don't think like he's coached in the NFL before and it didn't work out, would be Nick Saban. Mm-hmm. That's the only other coach I could think of besides Bill Belichick that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's Vrabel, but I wouldn't take Vrabel over Kyle.
Yeah,
it's just it sucks because since there aren't these great candidates out there, everybody always comes to Kyle's defense of like, well, if it's not going to be him, what do you want to go back to the Chip Kelly era? And the problem with when they fired Harbaugh was that they didn't get a good, suitable replacement for him. They just hired the defensive line coach and called it a day because he was friends with the Yorks. And then after that, they chose Chip Kelly, who was also bad. I feel like as soon as Kyle learns to let go of his ego, he will be a monster just like Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. I just don't think he'll ever get rid of his ego. I think he's that stubborn. That's my issue with him. He like consistently will not learn. And that, I mean, he will keep us in the mix at the top. I'd say consistently, as long as he's a head coach, he should keep the 49ers relevant. I just don't know if he'll ever win a Super Bowl if he doesn't ever let go of those tendencies. It would have to be a big name or a hot commodity with this fan base. Yeah, I think so. I think right now, like if they fire Kyle Shanahan and replace him with a guy who nobody's ever heard of, you're going to have a tough time. Bro, he's still young as fuck. Yeah, I know. And he's still hella stubborn. I don't want to be coming off as like very confrontational, Fonzie. I definitely think your opinion is very valid and you might be right. Maybe Kyle Shanahan will figure it out. It's just with the information I'm given from Kyle, I wish that he would have the introspection that I think that he needs. I think he needs to understand that everything that he's ever done is not 100% right, and you address the mistakes that you've made and you correct them. I just think that he gets very defensive about the decisions that he makes, or at least that's how it comes across, and they never get addressed. He makes the same mistake over and over. You know, as soon as that's why I say as soon as he gets over himself, I feel he will be better. I hope so, because if he's going to be the head coach long term, he needs to be. But this upcoming week against the Bills, I don't think that he's going to learn any mistakes. I think it's going to be another long week for the 49ers. They are going to be playing the Bills. I want to say on the road, 49ers versus Bills. It is going to be a Sunday night football game at Buffalo on December 1st. It might be snowing. I don't know what the weather is going to be. I think whether it's Brock Purdy returning or if it's Nick Bosa who's going to be right back out there, or whether it's going to be Brandon Allen throwing passes, Joshua Dobbs, Tanner Mordecai, Daniel Jones. Which the Daniel Jones thing, can we stop that? What a waste. That would be a waste of time. It would be a waste of time. He doesn't know the offense.
Oh my God. It just hit me. He's going to be a Raider. Continue.
Yeah, and then he's going to win games. No, just that would just be the Raiders' luck. But my gut tells me that he's going to end up being a Raider, especially after Minshew's injury. I would just pray to God that he does not win games if I'm a Raider fan. But we'll talk about that in a second. I'm not interested in Daniel Jones. He might be better than Brandon Allen, but so is Josh Dobbs, but he's not going to play.
Yeah. It's good to have depth, but, I think Daniel Jones is kind of, at this point, he's very similar to a Sam Darnold where he should be more of a project and not, set in stone number 2 quarterback. He damn near should be a number 3 quarterback for a year,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So you're taking the Niners in this one?
I am not.
No? All right.
No. That was part of the reason why I chose the Niners last week before knowing about Purdy and Bosa being out was I feel like they should have gone into that Packers game with their backs against the wall, and I think no matter what, they're going to lose to the Bills, which only made the Packers game a bigger, must-win game than it already was.
They did go into that game with their backs against the wall. They just also went blindfolded, and you put both of their arms tied behind their back, and you put a bag over their head, and they got their asses kicked. They didn't know what hit them. So I don't know. Josh Allen, I think is going to have a good game. The 49ers in their prime played against the Buffalo Bills. Maybe the last time might have been 2020. So maybe that was the last Super Bowl hangover year that they played against Buffalo. But they're just not a good matchup for the Niners. Josh Allen literally is the definition of a quarterback that would give the 49ers trouble. Just a guy who escapes pressure, can run. James Cook is a good running back. Keon Coleman. Is Coleman back to playing or is he still injured?
I think he's still injured. He might be coming. Actually,
he might be coming back because they're coming off a bye, right?
Yeah.
Another team that the 49ers are playing coming off a bye. So they had 2 weeks to prepare for this game to annihilate the 49ers and put them out of their misery. I don't know. I think Buffalo. I think higher of Buffalo than I do Green Bay. This is another tough matchup. Give me the Bills in this one. I just think it's not our year. It's not our year. Or at least it's not our week. It's not our week. Might be our year. Maybe we can turn things around like this part of the schedule. Maybe make the playoffs, but I don't know. Things are not going well right now in Ninerland. You're picking the Bills, right?
I sure am.
Yeah. The Bills defense is pretty good, right? Right, Mike?
I think it's been solid. It hasn't been like top tier, but it's been solid.
Yeah. Unless we get a vintage McCaffrey performance and the 49ers fix all their penalties and their special teams doesn't gaff it up and then their defense can play better. That's a lot to ask for. I'm just going to pick Buffalo. that's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
Especially for a team like the 49ers who don't play in very cold weather. So, yeah, let me get to the rest of these comments and then we can, move over to the Raiders. How long did it take Bill Belichick or Andy Reid to win a Super Bowl? It definitely took a long time, but I mean, Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, just because they were eventually able to, overcome their early career shortcomings, doesn't mean that it's guaranteed that Kyle Shanahan will. There have been plenty of coaches who have been great have been really good coaches, had success, who have never won. So, yeah, I mean, it's a matter of whether Shanahan's willing to learn. And I'd say right now it doesn't look like he wants to. So maybe you give him 10 years. I mean, are you, as a 49er fan, are you willing to wait 10 years for Shanahan to win a Super Bowl? That would put him in like year 17 as being a head coach. And I don't know. I'd be pretty pissed off if the 49ers don't win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. I would probably be thinking to myself yeah, I'm 35, going on to 36. Like maybe they might not ever win.
I'm already thinking that.
Yeah,
for the Raiders.
Don't worry, Mike. They'll win the first round pick thing this year.
It's looking better.
Daniel Jones is like an Alex Smith. I would say like Alex Smith pre-Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can see that. Absolutely. And I can see him still, like, remember a year or two ago when he was a free agent or going to be free agent, and then the Giants re-signed him to that ridiculous deal instead of Saquon, I want to say. Like, they had the option between the two, and they chose Daniel Jones.
What a horrible decision.
Yeah,
what a horrible decision.
It's all the way bad. I mean, I understand not giving a running back a long-term deal, but, like, I mean, Saquon might be making a case for Offensive Player of the Year right now on the Eagles. Yep. And just with Daniel Jones a year or 2 years ago, I guess it'd be 2, maybe 3. Damn. I was saying, if Daniel Jones hits free agency, like, I wouldn't be mad at the Raiders signing him. Like, I see the potential with him. It's just he needs to be developed. And for one thing, they need to have the right coach in the building to do that, whether it's Daniel Jones or a rookie quarterback, which I would prefer a rookie quarterback, but I can see the Alex Smith route. I think that's a great comment. I think that's a great call.
Yeah, I think that is a very good comparison because Alex Smith was really, really bad before Harbaugh. Yep. Yep. If you've been a 49er fan for a long time, you would know. And, Daniel Jones has the tools. Like, he has the tools, but they need to be controlled. And maybe a scheme like Shanahan's would be the perfect, place for him. It's just every time I've seen Daniel Jones play, everything looks very chaotic and like he doesn't know what to do. And maybe Shanahan telling him exactly what to do would be the answer for him. But, it might be Antonio Pierce telling him what to do.
I highly doubt that unless they're both in the Canadian Football League. But even his like mobility and everything about him reminds me a lot of Alex Smith, actually. High draft pick. Yeah, all of it.
I would say that Daniel Jones is a little bit more mobile than Alex Smith. Like, I do think about that play against the Saints in the playoffs where Alex Smith ran for that touchdown, but Daniel Jones is like, he is a rushing weapon,
Yeah.
Like, I would say Daniel Jones is like Josh Allen if you like cut off his head and stuck him out there. Josh Allen at least, like, he makes the boneheaded plays, but Daniel Jones just like makes a lot of boneheaded plays. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible decisions. He's not going to save the 49ers, but Like I said, I think he would be better than Brandon Allen, but it's at this point taking on a project. I don't know. Thrown into the fire. With the highest expectations but the lowest requirements met team-wise. I'm assuming for Daniel Jones stepping in. We will lose, bro, against the Bills. Yeah. Allen had his hand warmers for most of the first half. Like, bro, it wasn't all that cold. I'm sure it was pretty cold. And then honestly, like, for me, I don't know if I have poor circulation. I know I'm not Brandon Allen, but I mean, I'm just trying to be a little empathetic. My hands get very cold, and when I'm playing like video games or if I'm playing sports and my hands or my fingers are frozen, it's horrible. Like, I perform much worse if my hands are like numb, you know. So I understand why they keep it warm. What Fonzie means is that why are the 49ers giving up on Shanahan? Yeah, I'd say it has to do with if there is somebody out there to replace him with. I mean, shit, can you trade him? If there's a team out there that would trade picks and you have a guy that you might be interested in, why not make the trade?
I think there would definitely be teams interested in trading for him for sure.
Yeah. Smith was drafted over Rodgers. Smith went into a rebuild. Rodgers got to sit 3 seasons behind a legend in Favre. Yeah. So did Jordan Love. So everyone else seemed fine though. No one on the cast looked as if they were frozen. Yeah. Like I said, it's probably colder than what it looked. It's Wisconsin in late November. It's cold out there. It wasn't snowing, but yeah. I mean, you might be right, Fonzie. I don't know.